Welcome everybody to another video from Robotic Mower Services. Today, got the 435X up here on the workbench, and I'm going to talk about the switch cord errors, and lifted errors that come from the switch cord, but people mistake for errors with the joysticks. So if you're not aware of what the switch cord is, it's a safety switch or safety mechanism underneath the spine of the mower here. This plate, this is part of it. There's a cord that runs around in there. It starts over here. There's a grommet, and a cable goes into the front chassis. It comes out of that grommet, or it comes out through the grommet, and runs around here through the spine of the mower. It makes a little bit of an M shape. There's a couple curves back here. It comes over here to this side where it dead ends. So the whole reason for that is if the mower's out there mowing, somebody decides, hey, I'm going to pick this thing up and move it out of the way quick while it's still mowing. I don't want to lift up here because it'll shut off. You know, that's going to activate the stop switch. So I'll just cheat and I'll grab under here and pick it up. Well, that switch cord is going to tell the mower, somebody just lifted this up, shut down. That way you don't have this mower being flailed all around with the cutting discs spinning and risking harm to whoever gets in its way. So first thing you got to do to diagnose this is obviously, you want to start by making sure that this plate under here moves up and down. But to test the actual cord itself in there, you want to get all this out of the way up here and get in there to unplug the cable. So you got to pop that grommet out to be able to do that. That means lifting this stuff up off the joysticks. Before you can do that, you have to flip the mower over and you have to disconnect the plugs for the headlights and the ultrasonic sensors. Don't go trying to yank up on this thing and pop it off the joysticks until you have disconnected everything underneath of the mower. Alright, so you have everything underneath disconnected, your headlights, your ultrasonic sensors. Now what you got to do is give the body here a good tug up off the 4 joysticks. Like that. And one more. There we go. Now you can just flip this back after it is positively disconnected from all 4 joysticks. I think we just fell back down on one there. There we go. And just set that to the side. So now I'll try to get a little bit of better view here. This is your switch cord right here. This is where it plugs into the chassis. And all you gotta do is, just like the other grommets on these mowers, just take your finger and pry on it. And there you go. There's the plug to disconnect it. It's real simple and real easy to get to once you have the body out of the way. If you've done this several times and you know what you're looking for, you possibly even take the wheel off of there and reach in and disconnect that. That's how we do it sometimes, just to save a little bit of aggravation. But there's a 2-prong connector here on the end. So you want to use your multimeter and you want to test both of these wires. You're going to test for resistance in this switch cord wire. Alright, you got your multimeter ready to go. You want to have this set to kiloohms. Your plug for your switch cord, you want to stick your probes from your multimeter in the end. So you got 1 probe on each pin in the connector. And you want to measure the resistance here. And what you're looking for is at least 8.2 kiloohms. So you can see on this one here, we're at 8.21. This is good. That is what you want. You want to have at least 8.2. If you have more than that, hey, you're doing good. I don't know of any number for how high it can go before it's bad, but 8.2 is what is listed in the manual as the minimum that you want to see. And what happens is when that plate is squeezed and the switch cord is activated, this resistance is actually going to drop. So see if I can hold these here, get a good connection there. Yep, slipping out. Alright, so we got our 8.2 right there, and then when I squeeze this plate, you'll see it drops. Goes down to almost 0, then back up. And squeeze it again, down it goes, and there we go. Back up, and back down. So that's what you want to look for. You want to make sure that this thing is actually working right. And you want to make sure that when you go to test it, it's not, let's see if I can get it to work right here. You want to make sure when it's at rest, it's not saying like, you don't want to see something like that for sure, but you don't want to see this thing partially activated. You know, you don't want to see it saying like 6 or 5.34 or something like that. All right, so you got your plug and your probes in there, and you're checking your resistance on your switch cord. You're looking for that 8.2 kilo ohms, and you've tried it over and over again to make sure you got a good connection. You're just not getting that 8.2. You're not getting anywhere close to it. So what now? Replace the switch cord? Well, not so fast, because it could be an issue where the switch cord is actually partially activated. You know, it might just be fastened in there wrong. So in order to check that, we have to get in under here, underneath this plate, to see how the actual switch cord is routed. And that's kind of a pain in the butt to do. There's 4 screws under here. It's kind of a pain in the butt to do without removing the back end of the mower here. You can flip it over, but it's going to make it tough to work on. So the easiest way and the best way is to remove this part. And let me grab some tools and I'll show you how you remove the rear chassis from your Automower so you can lift the spine right up off there. Alright, to remove the rear chassis from this all-wheel drive Automower, we need to remove this cover right here. And the way to do that is you can get in under there with a flat screwdriver, or sometimes you just get your fingernails in under there and just pull out on this a little bit and pry up, and it will just unsnap off of there. That's it right there. You got the 2 legs up here that clip in, and then this part clips in at the bottom down here in this notch in the spine of the mower. So with that off, next thing you got to do is we have to take these 2 screws out up here that hold this harness in place. And these do not take a T20 Torx head. These actually take a T27. So you want to make sure that you got the right one, because if you put a T20 in there, you could easily strip out the splines on the screw heads. So take them out, the holder out. Then we need to unplug this harness. There's a locking tab over here on this side. You want to just get in there and squeeze that. You might have to wiggle it around a little bit, and that's it. Harness is undone, and now we just have this nut right here. And this takes a 13mm wrench or socket, whichever you have handy. You don't have to have any power tools or anything for this one. Just comes right off there, easy as can be. We're doing that with a 1/4" drive ratchet by hand. And then this is ready to lift up off of there. So make sure your wire doesn't get tangled up in there or anything. Just hold it out of the way and just pick up on it. That's it. So now your rear chassis is free from the rest of the mower, and we can flip this over to take a better look here at our switch cord assembly. So this is it here. This is the switch cord assembly right here. This is the plate that moves up and down when you try to pick up on the mower. That's what activates the switch inside there and tells the mower to stop because it's being lifted. So now what we want to do is we want to take these 4 screws out and check the routing of the cord underneath there. And again, these are not T20s, these are T27s. And you don't want to use power tools on this stuff. You want to go nice and easy because you don't want to screw up the threads on anything. And that's going to be very crucial when we go to put it back together, that you put this back together using hand tools rather than your cordless impact or some kind of other power tool. Alright, got the 4 screws out of here. We're going to remove this plate, but I want to show you here the reason why this is a little bit easier to do if you have it flipped over like this. Is you pull this back here and you can see that you have access to the end of your harness for your switch cord. So you can check that while you're putting everything back together. You know, you're not trying to fight holding this up from underneath to put it back together, tighten your screws in, and check that. And you'll see better what I'm talking about here as I move on with this. So the switch cord obviously comes in from this side here where I just showed you the end of the cable was. It plugs into the front chassis, and it comes around here. It's a big U, goes through there, and then back here it dead ends right up there. So flip this over here, and you can get a look at that. You can see that it clips into this plastic plate here, and that's the dead end I was talking about. So it clips in there. Everything should be held in place really good, you know, shouldn't be no issues there, right? Well, remember, this cord activates when this plate is pushed, or yeah, when this plate is squeezed against the spine of the mower. It squeezes that cable in there, and that's when your resistance goes away. It activates a switch, and it knows to stop the mower. So how is this cable going to know if it's being squeezed up and down, or if it's being squeezed side to side? It doesn't. And that's where you can find a problem with some of these that are just overly sensitive. You know, you're getting those lift errors constantly, and you've checked all your lift joysticks and everything, those sensors and everything's good. This is why you want to check your switch cord here, even though it's not specifically saying switch cord, because if right here where it goes around this little nub that holds the switch cord cable in place, and this was pulled a little tight, it's already starting to put tension on that. It's already starting to activate that. So then it just bounces around a little bit more, and it doesn't take much for this to drop below that 8.2 kilo ohms of resistance, and you're going to get a lifted error, or you're going to get a switch cord error. So, right, I had to break away there a little bit. I want to cut into this here. You see, this is the switch cord assembly that we're working on, and I want to point out two things here, two important things. One is the arrows here on the cable itself. You want to make sure that they're facing up, because if they're not facing up, then this is installed the wrong way. So you can see the arrows going the whole way around here. Just look for them, make sure that they're facing up. And you can see that the one we're working on is in a U shape, where I said at the beginning of the video, it runs back there and it kind of makes an M shape. Well, I'm not wrong. The old ones are an M shape, the older version. So this is the newer version here, the U. So it comes around and it just has this one spot that it pulls around, and it doesn't get pinched as easily during the assembly process. This is the old style where it makes an M, or, well, looking at it this way, it'd be a W. But you can see it goes around here, and this cable is held much tighter. So this is going to have a better opportunity to pinch the cable just from the assembly process than this one would. You can leave this one here, you know, nice and loose right in there and in there, where this one here, you're pulling it around this corner, you're pulling it around this corner, and then you're pulling around this corner. So it's got three spots there where it could have tension put on it and cause that to trip an error when there's not really anything happening. It's not being lifted, but just has that extra tension on there, and the vibration can make it think like, oh, that's it. Time to tell the motor to shut down. Now you can see also on this one, I say about the arrows, they are on there, but it's going to take a lot of cleanup to be able to find them. Yep, right there is one. So yeah, this was best case scenario right here. If you have this one and you got the newest version and it's nice and clean in there, this is a worst case scenario where you see that it has the M or the W configuration for the cable, and this one has a ton of mud and dirt in here. So with that piled up on there, now all of a sudden that gap between this cable and the arm here, the spine of the mower, that just got filled in. So it's going to take even less for this to be activated now. So that's what you want to look for when you're taking these apart. You could have this style, or you could have the old style here in the manual. This is actually the style they show currently in the workshop manual and everything. A lot of mowers out there like that, but you can see obviously why they went away from this style, with the possibility of multiple places where it can be pinched there, to this style to alleviate some of those lifted errors and switch cord problems. So now back to the rest of the video. Make sure there's no dirt and debris in here that could be causing this thing to get pinched more when you put it back together. Make sure that's all cleaned out and there's no burrs or anything in there. So then when you put it back together, just put this back in there, set that down. Like I said, you can go through here, you can get all your screws started in there. So you get your 4 screws snug. Before you go tightening them down, you want to check your resistance here, and as you tighten each one of these screws down, you want to continue to check it to make sure that this isn't pinched anywhere. So you start here at this end, go through, we're still good. We're at 8.26 right now. Move on to the next one. And we're staying good. Move to this one. Still good. The last one. There we go. Still above 8.20, so that's good. That's what we want. And now if we push it down, there goes our resistance goes away. The switch is activated. It's coming back on its own. Still staying above that 8.2, so it's not getting jammed up. It's not frozen in there. It's not stuck. Everything is working the way it should. And a lot of times that's what will happen. Everything is actually good. There's just some dirt in there, or the cable was pulled by something. Might have been when somebody's taking it apart. They forgot to unplug it. Forgot to take the grommet out and unplug this, and they lifted up on the top of the chassis and pulled on that a little bit or something to get it jammed up. But that's why it's important to check this before you just go throwing parts at it, because, well, parts on back order, things like that, it could slow this whole repair up. And then you get the new switch cable and you put it in there and it works, but you didn't really need it because you just went through and did it this way here, the correct way to put it in there, and it's going to work fine. But good chance that the one that was already in there would have worked fine too if you would have taken the time to make sure that everything was situated properly in the mower's spine. So now we'll go ahead and flip this back over and put our rear chassis back on there and work on getting this thing back together. Alright, now we're going to connect our rear chassis to our front chassis. You want to make sure that you get everything lined up right. There are indexing points on this shaft here and in the spine of the mower where that shaft comes through. So you want to make sure to take a good close look at that, line that up. Put this over here a little bit closer and I can show you what I'm talking about here. There's a spot on, there's a slot cut into either side of this shaft, 180 degrees apart. So as long as when you go to put this together, the shaft is going side to side, it's going to line up with the key in the hole here. So we'll put that in there and just wiggle that down in there. Fit everything together, give a little bit of a turn, get our wire tucked in under here. So just like that, it's going to fit down in there and latch in. And the reason for that is because this has to be matched up with this spine because of this being calibrated to work correctly with the front half. So, got that in. We're going to put our nut on there. That up. Again, no power tools needed for this. Very simple, very basic. Don't want to go over torquing it. I mean, it is a taper fit, so you could really screw some stuff up if you go hog wild on it, hoss down on it too much. I'll actually get you some torque specs for that here once we get all the whole way through this. Just want to get this done here so I can get it back together so you guys can see how this goes together. Again, you're going to need your T27 Torx bit for these screws, not a T20. And no power tools on this either. Very easy to strip this stuff out. Cause yourself more headaches than you already had if you were having a switch cord problem. There we go. Our cable's plugged in, good and tight, latched in there. That's on there, holding that in place. Now we just need to put our cover back on. Put the bottom in there first, that notch, flip it in, and there we go. Back half of the all-wheel drive is assembled to the spine, and we're good to go with that. Alright, we got everything back together. We still got our 8.2 kilo ohms, and when we squeeze the switch, away it goes, comes back. Excuse me. Squeeze it, away it goes, comes back. Try it over and over again, try the different sides, make sure it's working, and if you've got that working like that and you're getting your resistance back after you release the switch, then everything is good to go with your switch cord itself. Simple as that. And the last part in this process would be reconnecting the switch cord to the plug coming out of the front chassis. Put that in there and then push your grommet in. Make sure that it is in there properly. You know, give it a little bit of a turn to make sure it's seated properly. Then you put your body back on, and you want to make sure that you don't push this down too tight and it jabs the joysticks up through the rubber snap lock caps on there. So just push down on it, down, down, down. If you feel go a little bit more than that, you just went through a snap lock cap. And so real quick here, just for any of you that don't know how to take this off and see, you can actually check if you push the joystick up through one of the snap lock caps, and this cover comes off real easy. You just grab it up here under by the headlights, and it just unsnaps. Sounds like you're breaking it. I know, it makes you want to cringe, but it just comes right up off there, and then you can look down here on your snap lock caps and see if the joystick has poked up through it or not. Just a little tip there, thought I'd tell you while we're doing all this, so you can really double check your lift errors. And if you're wondering about the back, well, give me a second here. Snap this back on and I'll show you the back part too. Alright, the back part of the chassis, it's even easier to look in there at your joysticks to make sure they didn't pop through the snap lock caps, because this cover is just held on by a couple little magnets. So you just pry up on it and you can see there's the magnets there and there. That's it. And right there is your snap lock cap, there, and underneath here. Then put this back on. Just get these tabs back here in the slots. Get that lined up like so, and that's it. Takes care of the rest itself. Alright, we got everything back together now. We'll get into these torque specs here. So we'll start back here at the shaft. It comes up through what they call the link arm. We call it the bridge or the spine because more people understand what we're talking to when we refer to it as the bridge or the spine. Link arm is the proper term for it, but the shaft that comes up through here, 13 millimeter socket or wrench for that nut, and the torque on that is 16 Newton meters. On the two screws underneath here that hold that wiring harness in place, 1.8 Newton meters. On your four screws on your switch plate that hold it in place, that is a torque setting of 6 millimeters on those. So there you go. That was our video on how to diagnose and solve your switch cord error problems, lifted errors, and anything else that could be caused by that switch cord sensor underneath the spine here of the mower. So hopefully you guys learned something. Hopefully this will save you some money, save you some time, and be able to get your mower fixed back up and working properly and more reliable. As always, if you have any questions, you're looking for some tech support, you're looking for parts for your Automower, whether it's a 435X or it's another model that they sold here in North America, you know where to find us, www.roboticmowerservices.com. If you have a question or need some more information about this stuff, you can go to our website, or you can just send us an email, roboticmowerservices@gmail.com. Be sure to also like our Facebook page and subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching.